Now. So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. This is our new Bidgely webinar this fall, focusing on heat pumps. Very excited to have you all here today. We'll talk about, the Bidgely's technology, around disaggregation and how we identify heat pumps and heat pump candidates and how we can help you drive your heat pump conversion. The premise behind, today's webinar is focused around the opportunity and the challenge that heat pumps represent for utility companies. They do check a lot of boxes, and there's a big push out there today for heat pump installations and the broader electrification premise. So we know that more than half of U.S. governors have committed to installing about roughly 20 million heat pumps by 2030. That's a big jump in 7 years, considering we are slightly below 5 million today. But heat pumps represent a big opportunity for driving energy efficiency, decarbonizing our grid, better manage our load as well. And there's a lot of incentives, who provide, financing opportunities for customers. That being said, it is not a silver bullet, and achieving that goal is that I mentioned, and the goal in general to decarbonize the U.S. economy is going to be challenging. Awareness around the availability of those incentives for customers to electrify their heating cooling usage is quite low today. It does require a high customer engagement. It requires customers to take a step of, installing a new appliance. And there's a lot of noise throughout the industry and the news, and it's really hard to cut through that and focus on what information actually matters and is most important and valuable to customers. So with that, there's an opportunity for utility companies to set themselves up as a true energy partner to accompany those customers in that transition towards beneficial electrification and the adoption of heat pumps. So today, this is what exactly we're going to talk to you about. My name is Pauline Marcoux. I'm the Director of Strategy and Growth at Bidgely. I lead a team of solution consultants and solution engineers who support our sales directors in their prospecting and expanding Bidgely's partnerships with utility clients. We're subject matter experts in our different solutions, and I'm here today to drive this webinar and accompany Mary Montesi, who is our innovation manager. Mary, would you like to give a few words of introduction?
Yes, thank you very much, Pauline. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Mary Montesi. I am the manager of innovation, and I work with all of our analytical solutions. So I do a lot of collaboration with utility stakeholders and essentially just dive into use cases, brainstorm, and come up to kind of innovative solutions to answer all sorts of different types of questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mary. And so a little icebreaker, if you don't mind, winter is coming. It is my favorite season of the year. So Mary, what are you most excited about the winter? On my end, I'll give you my answer is I love the end of year holidays. I just love the atmosphere around Christmas. I love personally getting, cozy in the home, decorating the tree, that's all that sort of thing. Mary, what are you looking forward to this winter?
Absolutely. So for me, I have a very big family and everyone's coming in town for the holidays. So it's wonderful to get to hang out with the entire family. Additionally, I love skiing, so I'm very excited when that snow comes down to eventually hit the slopes.
That's awesome. That's really great. Thank you, Mary. And speaking of winter, heat pumps, right? Very important. So let's give a rundown of who we are at Bidgely. Maybe some of you are not familiar with who we are. We're an energy intelligence company And we work with our utility partners to provide behind-the-meter insights. Those behind-the-meter insights can benefit both the end customers as well as the utility. They help, build a trusted partnership between the customers and its energy provider, turning them into, happy, engaged customers. And we help, bring the customer side and the grid side together by setting up customers as a component of your modern grid management strategies, which is responsive, resilient, and ready for distributed energy resources. And we help utilities run, smarter, more cost-efficient business operations, leveraging those data insights powered by disaggregation. So I'd like to kick this webinar off by kind of getting to know each other a little better. You know us, we would love to know you as well. So let me go ahead and share a little poll that we're going to do together. So if you can see this screen in front of you, if you can take out your phone, you can either go type in your browser menti.com and enter the code that appears here on the screen, or you can scan the QR code here. And my first question to you all is what team or what department do you currently sit on? So if you want to go ahead, scan the QR code, type in your response, and let us know, what's your focus today? Great, we've got some energy efficiency folks. We've got some energy services, business development, comms, marketing, program design, strategy, more energy efficiency programs. Yes, love the focus. EE, strong representation in the room. I love this. Resource planning, very good. Innovation. Let me remove the instruction. Demand side management, heat pump focus, very specific and very on point for our webinar today. Wonderful. We got more coming in. Water conservation as well. Very interesting. Innovation. Great. Well, thank you so much all. That really helps us know who we have in the room and, and what and how our messaging can resonate with you. I'll make sure that it's relevant as much as possible. Now, my next question for you is, why are heat pumps important for you? So again, type in a quick response, short and sweet. We don't need you to spend too much time on this, but we would love, again, to know what is it that why is it that this topic is specifically important to you? Might be some goals on your programs. It might be some, new rebates or incentives that you're designing. The opportunity for savings, yes. Absolutely. Impact to peaks, that's great. Climate Florida perfect for heat pumps, sounds awesome. Climate action plan, efficiency and cost savings, how they impact the nutrition programs, winter peak demand. Yes, we have a great case study from a winter peak utility to present to you later on. So that will resonate with you, I'm sure. Hybrid heating, energy savings, achieving net zero, yes. There's an HVAC huge load, yes, absolutely. Wonderful. All right, my last question to you all, if you would bear with me. This one is asking you, and if you don't recruit heat pump candidates today, you also have the option to select the last response, which is that you don't recruit them yet, but you want to. But otherwise, can you tell us more about how today you are identifying and recruiting heat pump candidates? And if there is another option that you don't see listed here, please feel free to tap it in the chat, because we would love to know if you're using any other mechanisms, what is it, so that we can be better aware of your situation. Interesting. I see contractors definitely, and contractors and GD website, two very dominating channels of recruitment. That makes a lot of sense. I see a few folks in the room who are not recruiting yet. Great. Then we have a great opportunity to help you, design your future recruitment strategies, and as well as, improving on your existing ones for those who are recruiting today. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your participation. Really appreciate it. It's going to help us, Mary and I, tailor the content of this webinar to our audience today. So I'm going to go back to the slides, and thank you so much again for your participation. And I'll set the goals of our webinar today, and then I'll pass it on to Mary, who's going to show you our analytics solution. But the goals of the webinar is really to help you understand how our technology works. Our disaggregation technology based on artificial intelligence. Mary is going to walk you through how we detect specifically some appliance attributes that are helpful for identifying heat pump candidates. We'll also help you uncover new opportunities to increase your heat pump production, or to create new recruitment strategies for your heat pump programs. And then we will show you some examples of live projects today. So how some of our utility partners have used that technology in the field. Mary, would you like to take over our demo?
Absolutely. And while I am doing so, I will share the two fundamental things of when you are doing a webinar is to make sure you are not sick and that you have a good internet connection. So I am 2 for 2 right now. Can you?
Yeah, we can see your screen fine. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
And I will say, as you walk through this, Mary, feel free, anyone who's listening in, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat room, and we can address your questions. You feel free to raise your hand and ask a question live.
Yes,
obviously.
please do.
But otherwise, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, please put them in the chat. That way we can cover them as we're going. We'd love for this to be interactive. It's much more fun when you have questions. We can help answer them. So please use that chat liberally, and we'll hopefully be able to take as many questions as we can. Okay, so like I said, I'm Mary Montese. I'm the Innovation Manager for Bidgely, and I work with all different types of analytics. In particular, what I work with is Bidgely's analytical tool called Analytics Workbench. And for those of you that aren't as familiar with Bidgely, we are behind the meter disaggregation company. So what that means is we take your AMI meter data and we are able to feed it through our highly trained algorithms and able to actually detect what appliances do you have at home and when are those appliances being used. And then we take all of that information and we populate it in our platform called Analytics Workbench. And we're able to layer in all different types of other data and information from utility platforms so that it becomes one central repository for all of this granular appliance level data that you can use for many, many different use cases. But today in particular, we are going to be focusing on heat pumps. So I'm so glad we got to kind of get to know everyone that was on the call today. That really helps kind of frame the conversation we'll have today. And I think it highlights the fact that for myself, I work with all types of stakeholders and utilities So I work, I would say, with over 12, 13, 14 different departments. And a lot of times, many of these departments are interested in heat pumps, but everyone has a different perspective of what they're trying to achieve when it comes to heat pumps or other types of goal. So the challenge and what is fundamental is when many teams are trying to collaborate or trying to accomplish something with a particular appliance, such as heat pump, is that you can kind of coordinate all of those different actions and collaborate them into one cohesive strategy. And this is what we've been able to effectively do with a lot of our clients, is bring together 8+ departments and all coordinate and to bring a go-to-market strategy for heat pumps. So at the organizational level, there's many different reasons of why you'd want to adopt heat pumps or promote heat pumps in your territory. CO2 reduction, beneficial electrification. You want to help customers reduce their heating and cooling bills. So get rid of those inefficient appliances and replace them with highly efficient and hopefully inexpensive equipment such as heat pumps. And then additionally, heat pumps are a great appliance to bring into a demand response program to help you manage your demand during those critical peak events that happen in the winter, as well as in the summer. From an energy efficiency team, we have a lot of showing from the energy efficiency team, which is great. Love to see that. Highest kilowatt hour savings. You have to know where there are actually kilowatt hour savings that you can get, and who are those customers that you're really going to see that savings from. So you don't really want to promote heat pump for customers that already have an efficient appliance. You're not really going to see that any savings in terms of demand. And then in coordination with the energy efficiency team, you have your marketing team that hopefully is helping to drive that energy efficiency strategy forward. So from the marketing team, you want to make sure that you are marketing in a very targeted manner to customers that would most benefit from heat pump adoption. Like we talked about before, not everyone needs a heat pump. They already have an efficient appliance. But what we really want to do is take that segment of customers that are most in need of an appliance upgrade. They are using a lot of consumption, or their appliances are consuming a lot, and therefore they're seeing a very significant heating and cooling load on their bill. So their bill is getting driven up. So those are those customers that you want to be able to identify and help let them be aware of the potential offerings and rebates that are available to them. And then lastly, this is not always on the forefront of everyone's mind, but the system planning team. So I've done a fair amount of heat pump analysis with several of our clients, and the results are quite interesting. Heat pumps have a very different load shape than other electric heating devices. And in fact, new heat pumps versus older heat pumps have a different load shape between themselves. So when we think about projecting future heating growth, we have to be careful, because if we see a lot of that growth coming from heat pumps, those load shapes do in fact look different than the heating load shapes we've seen in the past from other types of electric heating devices. So making sure that we're accurately modeling and planning for heat pump adoption in particular is very important. Okay, so I am now going to move into Analytics Workbench. And I will be able to show you how does this actually work in practice. So like I mentioned before, Analytics Workbench is our energy intelligence tool, where we take all of that disaggregated data as well as many other data sources and bring it into this single platform for multiple different departments to all reference the same data and to be able to collaborate on different use cases. So right now I'm logged into a demo account. You can see it's just a small sample of customers. This is real data. So this is real consumption data. This is real relationships that you're going to see. It's anonymized and protected data, but we are in fact looking at real customer data. So we have about 17,000 customers that are loaded. Whoops. Let me come back to the tool. So in this demo account, what we'll be doing is we're only going to be looking at a snapshot of data. So for just 1 year, we're going to be looking at data for the full year of 2022 and for residential customers. Analytics Workbench can typically takes all types of data. So it takes commercial, industrial data, et cetera. And then for clients that this tool is live for, this tool gets updated with with consumption data regularly. So it's operating at real time. All right, so I will quickly just run through the tool and let you know what is in here. So on the location tab, we have the ability to zoom into and filter on specific postal codes or zip codes. On the premise tab, we can bring in all different sorts of premise information so that if you're interested in understanding consumption patterns by renters versus owners versus those who live in apartments and single family homes. On the account tab, we bring in rates. So this is very important when you're performing rate analysis. We can understand how customers are using different appliances when they are actually enrolled in different rates. A lot of very interesting conclusions and implications from that type of analysis. We have a lot of clustering based on how customers are actually using or how they're consuming energy throughout the year and throughout the day. On the load type tab, this is where we first introduce our disaggregated data. So in this first chart, you can see we have, of these 17,000 customers, 7% of them are EV owners, so relatively high, and about 24% of them also own pool pumps. And there's a lot of interesting analysis we can do here. In particular, I just want to show you this, but we will come back to this. This will be very, very important when we talk about heat pump analysis. So we are actually able to detect the efficiency of a heating and cooling appliance, and actually of that equipment. And I'll go into detail of how we're able to do so. But this is going to be a very important filter for when we're trying to get at the precise populations that would most benefit from a new heat pump. And we'll come back to that shortly.
Before we continue, I have a few questions coming in, especially around the type of data that is needed to run these kind of analytics. So Mark is asking, when you don't have AMI deployed, how can you identify customers with AC or electric heating to convert to air source heat pumps? And then I have a few more, but we'll start with Mark's question on non-AMI. Yeah.
That is a great question. So we are live with clients that do not have AMI meters. They're in the middle of transitioning to smart meters, but currently we only have the monthly reads. So with the monthly reads or non-smart meters, the offering is limited. So the ability to detect appliances does get hampered for non-smart meters. So we're able to detect some appliances such as heating and cooling. But this granularity that we're seeing here about the actual efficiency of the equipment, you're not going to be able to see that type of granularity in that data. Now, that being said, just because you're not able to get this type of granularity doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities of using your non-smart meter data to help segment particular customers for heat pump adoption. So I would be thinking about this in terms of who are my customers? You would still have your heating consumption. You would still be able to see who are your customers that are consuming the most heating and cooling. and then maybe those who are in single family homes. And I would be specifically looking at those residential customers where their heating and cooling burden is exceptionally high. And those would be the customers that I would start to target for heat pump adoption. That's a great question.
That's great. Thank you so much. So now let's move on to two questions around, three actually, around using more granular data, such as AMI. So first of all, we have one question from Steve, who's asking how granular of an interval, an hour, 15 minutes, and the other, does the AMI data need to be for the algorithms to work effectively? And is there a change in the accuracy with the increased frequency of AMI intervals?
Great question. So typically we see for smart meters, we'll see anywhere from 5 to 60 minutes. And for all of those intervals, we can detect, and you can see the list of appliances here. This is true detection. So there is no statistical modeling here. There's nothing to do with that. This is us taking the data, doing essentially a classification of what types of, or a feature identification, and then being able to pull out those appliances based on that algorithmic output. So anything under 60 minutes or 60 minutes is sufficient to get all of this true disaggregation, appliance level information. As the data gets more granular, the accuracy does go up, but not as much as you might think. There's places, so I would say for this type of data or this type of chart where you are really getting into the nitty gritty of the data, this is going to improve more when you have lower granularity or higher interval data, so around 15-minute data. You're going to be able to essentially have more granular output, the greater the granularity. But in general, 60-minute data, a lot of our clients have that, and we're able to do some very advanced segmentation and targeting based on that data.
Okay, sounds great. I'll ask, Mark did have a follow-up question around how does that work with daily reads? Can you identify AC and heat and electric heating with daily reads?
With daily reads, yes, we can. So we can detect heating and cooling the appliance with daily reads.
Perfect. And then Steve, I had another follow-up question. How many months of AMI data do you need to run the Disag algorithms?
So so typically we would want 13 months of data. These algorithms, they can be done with less data. We prefer 13 months because we want to be able to see that premise consumption over all seasons, winter, summer, shoulder months. Having all of that data is what really helps inform and ensure the integrity of the output.
Especially with seasonal usage like cooling and heating, right? It's really helps to see that. All right, I have another question from Jade. Where is the customer data coming from geographically? Do you have any data from the Northeast United States? And I know we'll show some examples of our live clients later. But what about geographical data specifically?
Absolutely. So Bidgely runs disaggregation for across the US for pretty much every geographical region in the US, as well as actually internationally. So I would say in the Northeast, I in particular work with multiple Canadian utilities. And that is very interesting because when you get into that extreme winters, and a much milder summer, this type of heat pump analysis becomes extremely important. So yes, we've been doing this disaggregation for all regions pretty much across the world. Yep.
Sounds good. Let's I'll close it off for the first batch of Q&A. We have a couple more questions that came in. I will keep collecting them, and I will let you go back to your demo, Mary, and we'll interrupt you a little down the line with more questions. So thank you.
Yes, please do. I am loving the questions. So I will breeze through the rest of kind of this introduction or primer to the tool. If you have more questions or would like follow-up, I would love to, set up a one-on-one. And then we can even offer you temporary login credentials to this actual demo. So you can come in, play with the data, understand it. We're happy to offer those types of sessions. And you can just go ahead and reach out on this webinar and we can arrange those next steps. Okay, so on the usage tab, we've kind of covered it. These are different appliances. This is how they show up across the years. We have an EV specific tab. So if you want to understand EV adoption over the years or the months, we have this level of information. We're actually even able to determine the amplitude of the EV charger, as well as geographically where are those EV owners located. And then lastly, on the grid tab, for this first chart, we have an 8760, which is plotting every single hour of demand for an entire year. So 365 days times 24 hours. So this is the total system level, this blue piece. This blue is representing total system consumption across the year. And then in the second chart, you can actually see what is the total system consumption at a disaggregated level. So right here in this particular month, you can see there was a dip in weather, and you might be interested, you had a system peak at that moment. So you would want to be able to zoom into those particular customers who was using what appliances to what degree during that system peak, and you would be able to do so in Analytics Workbench. And then lastly, from the utilities, we are able to receive their distribution mapping. So we bring in their substation, feeder, transformer level data. And therefore, you're able to do circuit level or substation, feeder, even transformer level analysis. So you can see, okay, how many EVs do I have on which feeders, and what is the impact of that charging? Okay, so back to heat pumps. I'm going to come quickly back to here and just to remind everyone what these charts look like, because I'm about to dig into how do we actually determine the efficiency of a HVAC system, and where does this information come from? So you can see this is very important and high impact information. If you're able to confidently say, what is the efficiency of these appliances? And then I want to target those customers that have an inefficient appliance. There is a lot of power here. And I want to show you what is kind of the magic in the sauce of how we're able to do this. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to move back to my slide deck. And thank you everyone for sticking with me with my very, very hoarse voice. All right. Okay. So our heating and cooling algorithms, so we've been doing disaggregation for about 13 plus years. In our heating and cooling appliance algorithms, these are some of the ones that we ever started on, which means that they're I would say like the most mature algorithms we've had. So not only are we able to detect heating and cooling appliances, but we've been doing this for so long and be training and retraining these algorithms year over year that we've actually started to be able to get very granular insights into the health of these equipments. And in particular, we're able to detect 4 different types of inefficiency for appliances. And I'm only going to be talking about one of them today. If you have more information, this is some of my favorite data science. I love going into detail and talking about this. So if you have more questions, please feel free. Let's follow up and get into some of those details. But I will just be walking you through HVAC appliance degradation today, but just know that I'm only showing you a sample of what our algorithms can do. So for your heating and cooling devices, their prime objective is maintain the set temperature in a home, but there's many different reasons why an HVAC system is unable to do so. One might be the efficiency of the equipment. So it might just be a poorly, have poor efficiency. It's an equipment malfunction, equipment degradation, etc. Another reason the HVAC system might not be able to maintain that temperature in the home is the efficiency of the premise. So what is the leakage of the home? Is there poor insulation, the windows, the doors, etc.? Is there a lot of leakage in the home? And then lastly, is the heating and cooling equipment correctly sized for the home? If you have a small heating and cooling device that's trying to heat a very large home, that appliance has its it has its work cut out for it. It's going to be working extremely hard all the time to try to actually maintain the temperature, and it's going to be functioning very inefficiently because it simply is incorrectly sized. So I'm going to give you a very expedited introduction into our data science. I will go through this rather briefly. So if this is uninteresting to you, it'll only last about 3 minutes, and then we can get back into the demo and I can show you essentially how do we put this information into practice. But this will be an expedited example of what we're actually looking at in the data science. So when we receive your AMI data, essentially how we get it is in this format of heat map. And I'm looking at this first chart right here. This heat map is total premise consumption. And we're looking at the start of it up top. We're starting in January 1st of 2018 and ending in December of 2018. So we're looking at a full year's worth of consumption. And in particular, in this blue box, what we see here is this is the summer months for this premise. And we're looking at only a single premise. The color of these consumption bars here, that represents the kilowatt hours or the amplitude of the energy being used in that premise. What we do is we take this AMI data, this heat map, we overlay it with a temperature information, as well as some other different premise information. But we can see we're looking directly at just the summer months right here. In this third chart, what we're able to do with our algorithms is we're able to just isolate the signature from that cooling device in that premise. And in the zoomed or this larger box, what we've done is we've zoomed in so we can actually show you some of the details. So we are looking only at the cooling compressor in this chart right here. And what you can see is this red area here, that is that compressor turning on. And then right next to it, you can see that black area, which means that compressor has turned off. And this is what consists of a duty cycle. So for a healthy appliance, what we would expect is for that compressor to turn on for about 15-20 minutes, and then that compressor to be able to turn off for 15-20 minutes, and that home is able to maintain that temperature very well over that period. And then when that temperature in that home dips a little bit too low or too high, then that compressor kicks back on and brings that home temperature back to that set point. But that isolating behavior between the compressor turning on and then turning off, this is very healthy compressor data or compressor behavior that we would expect out of a good appliance. Then right next to it, what we have here is we have an example of the same, it's the same appliance, but a little bit later on in the year, what we're seeing is that appliance, that compressor, is running at a higher amplitude. And we know it's running at a higher amplitude because it's showing up in that yellow. So it's essentially, it's becoming more energy intensive to run that HVAC system during the summer. And then during this period, we've almost entirely lost that compressor rest period. We just have about two to three different areas where that compressor is actually turning off. But really what we're seeing is that compressor is running at a higher amplitude and it's running longer without rest in order to maintain that set temperature in that home. And Pauline, I don't know if there's any questions in the chart. This is very technical. So not sure if there's questions.
We do have a few, and I want to keep my eyes on the time. It's just a quick heads up. We have 20 minutes, so just making sure we're covering our content appropriately. We do have a few questions. We do have a few questions. One came up about 10-ish minutes ago. It's about not specifically this topic, but it's around accuracy, how the accuracy changes with the type of appliance, which I think you covered, right? It's like we have different accuracy levels for each appliance. And it was asking, can the graph show the current accuracy and the current share of population per appliance? I don't think our analytics workbench has that built in today, basically showing you like an average like accuracy levels for the population in analysis. But obviously this is the kind of information that we can provide, and that we do provide that to our clients when we run our insights. Mary, are you still with us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am. Absolutely. Okay. I think you just covered it. Everyone is interested in accuracy. So with these customers that are live with this tool, what we can do is if they have like EV ground truths, they have a program or someone in a survey, they declare, oh, I have a heat pump, etc. What we can do is we can run essentially a quick study and compare your ground truths to our output. And make sure that you have the confidence and in this output. So we've absolutely done accuracy studies. More than happy to continue conversations on those. We do them all the time for customers. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
One other question around the furnace fans. So how do you separate this out from electric heating so that you can isolate electric heating specifically and not take into account the electric consumption from a furnace fan?
Someone is really paying attention. This is terrific.
Also from different people, so we've got a very engaged crowd overall.
Yes, no, I absolutely love it. In Analytics Workbench, before I show the demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly show you a chart. The answer is yes, we are able to detect any electrical components that aren't actually the heating or cooling device. So if that's blowers, like fans, or if that's a screen, whatever that might be, we are actually able to detect that electric signature and know that that is a heating device, even if that heating device, let's say, is gas-based or oil-based or something else. So those types of furnaces that have a non-electric fuel type, we are still able to detect the actual electrical components for those types of appliances. Great question.
Perfect. And I have one, and so the first question I asked you was from Fernando. The one just now was from Cody. I have one, I don't have a name, but they asking how differentiating between when the customer has an AC versus a pool pump for cooling. Are we able to do that?
So this is yes, in short, and I'll go into at the very end, I'm going to cover a very specific example of where we've done something very similar to this. So like I mentioned before, there are many different types of electric heating devices. And what we've done is we've actually been able to detect those different heating or electric devices. And then we've been able to actually understand the load curve of different heating and cooling appliances. And this is where I was saying it becomes very important for system planners, because if you're going to project out heating, if you have appliances with different load shapes, it's important that you're projecting out the right load shape for the appliances that are most likely going to be adopted in your near to long-term future.
Oh, great. And I don't know, Mary, if you're still intending to share your screen at the moment, which you're not seeing it, just FYI.
Oh, you're not seeing it. Okay.
No. So if you want to go back on, I'll keep we have a couple more questions from Adam. How does the heat map data change based on change in modern inverter-based heat pumps? So basically what they're saying is in that case, a unit would not turn on and only ramp up and down to match the heat and cooling load thanks to variable speed. This is a very advanced technical questions. I'm not sure, Adam, that we can respond it now, and it's very advanced. So what I'm going to do, Adam, is I'm going to let Mary come back and put on her screen, and I do want her to finish her demo. So what we'll do, Adam, is we'll take note of your question and we'll follow up with you directly. I hope that works for you. And then I do have my final question from Fernando. Can you detect several heat pumps? Can you tell how many heat pumps they have if they have more than one?
Yes. Oh, you mean actually in a single home? So that is a great question. What I will say is that is difficult. We are actually would love to engage on a custom project to study this. We can make very strong assumptions about if they have one or more heat pumps. But we'd like to even be able to take this one step further and actually run and train an algorithm to be able to detect multiple versus a single. So there's interest and there's work in that area, and there's a lot of potential. I'll say that it's a pretty exciting spot.
Perfect.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And can you see my screen share now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to move quickly through these last couple charts. So for HVAC degradation, like I mentioned, this is only one of the different types of inefficiency that we can detect. This is our most data strict inefficiency type. So what this means is we have to have a significant amount of data in order to run this type of inefficiency analysis, but it also means on the flip side is that the output is very telling and very powerful. So we are looking again at a single premise, and we are looking at 3 years of data. So I'm looking from 2017 to 2020, and these 3 bright spots, these are 3 summers. This is total premise consumption. This is that temperature overlay that we talked about before. And when we do this type of analysis, we normalize each of the seasons. So we make sure that we're not seeing some type of effect of where one season or one summer was very, very hot, the other one was mild, etc. We normalize temperatures for this type of analysis. And now you can see the output. So this is year 1 summer. We've isolated just that cooling signature. And you can see it is this cooling device. It's running at this kind of orangish color. And we're seeing a lot of alternating patterns in there. So it's the compressor turns on, the compressor turns off, and it's running at a pretty healthy amplitude for the majority of the summer. In season 2, we can see that it's running at a slightly higher amplitude, and it's starting to, the rest periods are becoming less frequent, but they are still there in second summer. By the third summer, however, this is where you can see that the appliance has really started to degrade. During almost the entire season, the cooling system is running pretty much at max capacity. So it is running at its highest amplitude. and it is running nonstop. So we would call this is a saturated appliance where it has to work all the time in order to maintain the set point in the home. And we don't see that rest period. For this type of fault detection, we make sure that we are looking at one customer at a premise for 3 years. So it is not like we have a new customer that moved in the 3rd year and they just use a lot more energy. This is the same customer that is lived at this premise for 3 years, and this is where we can see that performance of the appliance really starts to degrade. Very quickly, this is just an extension of what we just looked at. So this is watt hours on the side. This is year-over-year consumption. So with each year that a cooling device is having to consume more energy to maintain the same set point in that home. And then lastly, in this chart, it's a little bit complicated to read, but I'll do my best to explain it. At 95 degrees ambient temperature, so when it is 95 degrees outside, in 2018, this is that blue line, that compressor is working 50% of the time, and it's resting 50% of the time. So that's that nice isolating behavior that we like to see in an appliance. In 2019, we see that appliance is that the compressor is working about 60% of the time, and it's resting 40% of the time at the same temperature. In 2020, at the same temperature, that appliance is working about 90% of the time. That compressor is on and working 90% of the time, and only is able to rest for about 10% of the time. So this would be an ideal type of equipment that we would like to target this customer, say, hey, your bill, we've watched it go up 3 years in a row now. We want to help you out. We have this rebate. Can we help you replace this equipment with a very efficient heat pump? And therefore that customer will start using less consumption overall, as well as their heating and cooling bill will be reduced. Okay, so now I am going to very quickly come back to, or I have one more slide, and then I'm going to go back into Analytics Workbench. And I'm going to come straight to here, which is how do we accurately and best detect or target customers that are in need of heat pumps. So we want to drive the highest impact. We have 100 heat pumps, and we are willing to pay half the price of the equipment and the installation. The goal is we are winter peaking utility. We want to see some type of reduction during our peak hours during the winter. We also want to just help our customers. We want to reduce their heating and cooling bill, as well as we want to replace particularly inefficient appliances with a highly efficient heat pump. So we're trying to drive these 3 particular goals. And is your job to essentially say, okay, I have these 1,000 heat pumps with a very significant savings that's attached to it. How do I get these to the customers that are going to be most in need of these heat pumps, and how can I drive the highest impact? And I will show you how we can do this in Analytics Workbench.
Mary, I'll give you a heads up that you have 5 minutes left, and I know we wanted to talk about our client example as well.
Exactly. So I am going to skip a couple things, and I'm just going to show you how you would do this in Analytics Workbench. Okay, so what I would want to do, I want to know who's that segment who would best benefit from a heat pump. What I'd probably want to do is target owners, those who own their premises. You can also target renters, but I would do that in a separate marketing campaign. I would want to come down to my load type tab, and I want to say, okay, I really want to target those customers who have a very inefficient heating device. These are customers that if we replace it, they are going to instantly see that heating and cooling reduction in their bill. And then what I want to do is I also want to help reduce consumption during my peak times in winter. So there's several ways that I can do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select my heating appliance. I'm going to come down to my hourly usage chart, and I'm selecting my peak hours. Okay. And then I would go ahead and come to this consumption decile chart. And I want to select maybe the top 30 percentile of customers. So what does all of this mean? Walking through our filters, it is saying, I want to target customers who own their home, who have a very inefficient appliance that needs to be replaced. And then I particularly want, out of that group of customers, I want to target customers that are using a heating during peak hours. And these are the customers that are using the most heating during peak hours. So those are the ones that are really pumping up their heating devices during peak hours. And then at the very top of Analytics Workbench, what you have is this ability to download a CSV file. So as soon as this loads, you would be able to download a CSV file, and it will have the list of account numbers. You can pass this to your energy efficiency, your marketing team, and say, hey, these are my customers of the highest priority. Let's start targeting them with a heat pump rebate messaging. Okay. So I'm going to, in the sake of time, I'm going to come back to my slide deck and just show you, this would be the outreach that you could send to these types of customers, make it very specific, tell them tangibly why this is important to them, what is the dollar figure that they could save, and then also help educate them on, reducing their consumption during peak hours. So this is what we are doing with Nova Scotia Power. They have this entire tool live with them, and they said, hey, we want to take this one step further. We have a lot of, we are blessed with a lot of hydro energy in our area. We have this goal to essentially be 80% renewable by 2030. And an easy way for us to do this, or a very desirable way for us to do this, is get heat pumps out there for the customers that need heat pumps. So what we did, we trained a model for them, and what we were able to actually do is detect heat pumps in their territory. So this way, what they could do is they could understand who has a heat pump, who doesn't have a heat pump. Let's segment those customers that don't have heat pumps, have very inefficient equipment, and let's really target and go after that group that doesn't have a heat pump, and really push for our goals to help reduce their heating and cooling bills, help them use less energy, etc. But there was a lot of very, very interesting work around this, and the ability to actually detect heat pumps in their territory. And I will leave it at that.
Well, thank you so much, Mary. You walked through a lot of very advanced, detailed content. We had an incredibly engaged audience. I've never seen that many questions. We really tested your capacity to take on very advanced technical questions on the fly. So thank you so much. It was really wonderful. I know we did not answer everybody's questions. There's more about, can we extend this technology to detect natural gas heat pumps as they become prevalent? And more questions around, it was the example of a heat pump replacing an AC unit. We have a clarification on, can you detect heat pumps from AC as well, not just from heating? So unfortunately, we're at time. I wish we could answer all those questions. I feel we should have scheduled this for an hour and a half, and we would have had more time. But what I will do is we'll work with our team to follow up with every single of your questions. Those of you who have asked for clarification, stuff that we could not answer, and we'll follow up with anyone who might be interested in a deeper dive also on our technology. We're more than happy to do that. But For now, thank you so much, everyone, for your thoughtful, detailed questions, challenging at time, but we love it. Keeps us on our toes. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this webinar, and I wish you all a good rest of the week and happy holidays for those of you who celebrate over the coming weeks.
Thank you everyone so much. Really appreciate it. Love the involvement and the questions. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your week.